2024 election. And we keep arguing at different data sets. For example, when we look at what we have done, what we have achieved, we have achieved actually growth with jobs. It has gone down to the smaller and medium sector. The Mudra loans is flowing, 24 lakh crore given. 69% of Mudra loan beneficiaries are women. So a lot of things are happening at the ground level. From the top, when anybody sees, yes, of course, it's a big country, 142 crore people, a lot of engineering graduates, a lot of graduates are just passing out every single year. You need to create productive jobs. That's a challenge for any government. But to compare a Congress era, a Rajiv Gandhi era, a Manmohan Singh era, probably a Vajpayee era to a Modi era, I would say each was a very different era. Now what we are achieving is a faster growth, probably a longer foundation, a solid foundation. And very soon we want India to be a manufacturing capital of the world. And things are pointing towards that direction, but it's a work in progress, yes.
Would you regard the Make in India as a success?
You want to look at again Make in India with a very different set of lens, an economic lens, a social lens, a different set of lens. When before the Make in India program, India was a net importer from China. If you look at the balance of trade between both the countries, it was abnormally huge, and every single product is China. And you have to find a way to come out after a point of time, de-link it, try to make smaller companies, try to create the culture of innovation, create the culture of intellectual property protection. So everything has to happen. So Make in India, I'm sure you will look at a complete lens where not only creation of jobs, but also creation of that ecosystem, also creation of that infrastructure, which will actually keep pushing. I would argue Make in India with a very specific focus that Indian companies have to grow. Unicorns have come, we have 114 unicorns now, which is not an easy thing. 2014 it was 2, now we are looking at 114, and all of these unicorns are creating more jobs. That is why I keep joking. India's startup ecosystem valuation, $269 billion, is more than the GDP of Pakistan. And we want Pakistan to do well, we want all our neighbors to do well. Just to put things in context, the startup ecosystem of our country is just alone more than the GDP of Pakistan. The startup ecosystem, 110,000 startups, and we are slowly and steadily, and probably the third largest. So I would say it is working, but you have to take all angles into consideration before making a judgment about how Make in India is progressing. That would be my argument.
Please hold our applause just in the interest of having a good conversation. So there are two things that I want to come to my next question, which is about India's changing role in the world and its sort of its emerging presence on the world stage, right? In terms of the Asian century and so forth. But before I do that, I know that the number of you have your phones out and are recording, which is absolutely fine. But I neglected to say that we are operating here under Chatham House rules, so please do not post this on social media. Why do I ask this? Because it's actually very important to the ability of everybody in this room to ask fair and tough questions. So please, by all means, record. Just don't post, please, on social media so that we can keep this a conversation.
Excuse me, can you clarify what Chatham rules is? A lot of people
Yes.
are from India, they don't know.
Yes, sorry, helpful question, thank you. Chatham House rules means you are free to discuss the content of what we discussed today, but you do not identify any individual person as having said X, Y, and Z. So that allows you to talk about things that were interesting and things that came up, but without necessarily identifying people who may become in the world, especially in virtual worlds, as the kind of object of ire. Yeah? Okay, so this is the year of elections. We've had billions of people will have voted by the end of the year, and it's a world in which it's potentially a changing world order. It's certainly a changing world order because China has massively risen. India is sort of poised for the largest kind of growth in GDP that we see among developing countries, and so along with that is a sense that India's role in the world is changing, right? And so if there were, I'd love you to talk a little bit about what you think India's foreign policy looks like in that new world, particularly vis-a-vis China, and an area in which there has been, I think, quite a bit of disruptive border skirmishes and so forth that has recently calmed a little bit, but it is an ongoing. So how do you think about India's role vis-a-vis China? And if there were one thing you could do to change Indian foreign policy, what would it be?
Long time, from a small child, I used to see that India was part of one club or the other for a long, long time. That we either have to take the US route or the USSR route because they had the veto superpowers in the UN, and we have to do a lot of adjustment to keep our country's foreign policy priority. Now, very proudly that we all will say that we don't judge any country. That is the very important fulcrum of our foreign policy. We are not there on the global stage to judge a country. And second, we put our national interest first before making a decision. And many people get confused when they see from outside. Ukraine was a question. They ask us, why India is not taking a position. India has actually taken a position, but when people look at it, that position might not be conducive to a US or to a major country. Because Ukraine, you have to understand, we have 22,000 children who study in Ukraine. We have students who do medicine. And a prime minister who's sitting in our country, rightly so, he has to make a decision. First is to bring all those kids safely. And we have brought every single kid out from Ukraine because Ukraine is a big country where Indian students go for medicine outside our country. 84% of our sunflower oil comes from Ukraine. And India is an energy intensive country. So we have to take a lot of energy from outside. Ukraine and most of the USSR countries supplies a lot of pesticide for us. And people have to understand the context in which a country makes its foreign policy decision. With Russia, we have a long-standing friendship with Russia. That is why the Prime Minister is very clear that this is not an era of war and nobody should fight. There is a way to talk and settle everything. So Prime Minister has made the effort recently also to go to Russia, next to go to Ukraine President, meet both of them again now, and trying to push that people should stop fighting, and we don't make judgments. And second, the other aspect of the Indian foreign policy, I think it's a very confident country. Economically, when you start doing well, and you become slightly more confident in your outward looking also. And India has become slightly more confident in terms of the way we approach a country. And everybody is a very important partner. And with UK, a comprehensive strategic partnership is in works. Probably early next year, both the countries should sign it. Our current Prime Minister, Keir Starmer, is very important. The election promise was that. With respect to US, we are also very clear that we enjoy a very special friendship. And that friendship has to continue. Of course, coming to the second part, I understand, ma'am, a rising power has got a moral obligation now. So gone are the days when you are a small country, probably you are one among those countries, and you can side with one or the other. Now India is becoming a rising power. A rising power comes with moral obligation. Now, in the global committee of nations, you are forced to make moral choices, and moral choices define what great country you are. I think India is in that territory now, and a lot of us, including professors here, and I keep reading both of your articles at different points of time, and what you argue at different points of time appears to me that you want India to take a moral position because you believe gone are the days that a country cannot just be in the middle and balance two sides and enjoy the fruits of both the country. And that is where many of the eminent economists and professors argue. And a fair point, I'm not denying it. And I hope and pray India's choices is pretty well understood when people see from outside why we make those choices. And second, and we are very clear, just now the border problem with China, the pre-2020, both the armed forces are moving back now. I hope and pray that we live in a very complex place. Pakistan, we have a problem, we all know. Bangladesh, the recent crisis we have seen. Sri Lanka, you have just seen the economic crisis and the new government coming back. So we have to understand India, we didn't choose our neighbors. The neighbors are part of us, and we live in a very complex area that we have to maintain good relationship. Also in the world, we got to take position. Also, we got to make moral choices. So, and also we have to grow. Also, we have to import petrol, diesel, and everything. Also, the cost of petrol is one problem in our election. Petrol price and onion price can make a government to fall, and it is such a sensitive thing. And the first question that a citizen asks when you go for campaigning is, why are you not reducing the petrol price by 5 rupees? I can't sit with them and say, Ukraine problem, this is where we are importing, and this much barrels it comes. So I hope and pray we are getting into that. We are getting into that zone where India is taken very seriously also, madam. For us to make a moral choice, countries also should take it seriously.
Yeah.
Now the countries are taking it seriously.
Can I just push you on this a little bit, because I'm not sure that, just because you characterize and unanimized research as talking about India needing to take a moral position, I wouldn't call it necessarily a moral position, but that great powers, you're in one of three categories when you think about your influence in foreign policy. You're either kind of a maker of the rules of the game on the international stage, you're a taker, which is what you said when you're a small country, or you're a breaker, right? Now, largely, Russia has shown it's a breaker, right? That is to say, it doesn't want a system where kind of state, where sovereignty, for example, is a core cornerstone of the international order. China, interestingly, is coming around, I think, from a breaker increasingly to being of course, a maker, right? That it is saying that we know actually we want sovereignty, and within our borders we get to assert sovereignty. And when you think about a country becoming a maker of the foreign, of kind of the international order, as India is increasingly doing, then you have to ask, what is the vision? Right? What is the system of laws and institutions that we want the world of nation states to abide by? And increasingly, India's voice is growing in that. So it's really about what the vision is. So I want to push you on the one foreign policy.
You're exactly right, and at least I mentioned about both of your writings here. You give a very different perspective. It's very important and that is what I was only making a very positive comment on that. And Professor, you mentioned about a country has to either choose between a maker, probably a taker, or a breaker. But I would add a fourth category called enabler. And we see the world where India can be an enabler of many things. A whole theory of trying to use semi-aircraft carrier fleet and position it and then call somebody for trade negotiation or use my veto power in United Nations and take a call. I think we can be a good enabler because we are always that. We never invaded a country, we never went to a war, and Bharat is always like that, and anybody can check our history. And that is why I mentioned when I spoke about our foreign policy that we don't want to judge a country. For example, Russia and Ukraine, when they start judging, it becomes a problem because its heart is breaking. Same thing in Gaza, Palestine and Israel, what is happening, heart is breaking. You are seeing innocent children, people who haven't done a single mistake that time, no doubt about that. But the moment you get in, like a great powers, you start taking side, meaning that you are either a taker category or probably you are looking at what is in it for me. So we can be an enabler, and that is what Honorable Prime Minister Modi is trying to achieve. When Russia and Ukraine peace happens, it could be a fourth way.
Yeah, I know Nandi has a question on kind of North-South relation. Before we get to that, I just want to push again a little bit on it. So I like this category, enabler, right? Sounds really good, especially since it rhymes with. but you know, every country makes choices about things it's going to enable or not. India is not going to enable, incursions into its territory. It's going to not enable Pakistan to send terrorists to Mumbai, right? There are certain things that you make decisions on, things that you don't enable. So it's a nice soundbite, but what do you want to say? What is enabled? What is a cornerstone of Indian foreign policy other than, self-interest? Now, it might just be that absolutely, while India is growing, we're not choosing sides, we're going to sort of pursue India's interest. And I think that's actually a fairly legitimate thing to say, but actually to spin out what does that mean for foreign policy, because the world is looking to India for leadership on this.
Yeah. Now, only thing is we want the world to be fair with all the past. When incursions happened into our country by China in 2020 and different points of time, why was it not spoken in the same breath like the Russia-Ukraine invasion? And the great powers of the world, and they try to make something if it suits them. Again, I'm not making a judgment about the great cause of the world. Russia, Ukraine, the way it is spoken, why not India, China, the way it is spoken in 2020?
Yeah.
I hope and pray that countries, when they sit, they have a moral choice, they make it. And you cannot have an institution that is created post-World War II that doesn't represent a country well. And you expect India not having a veto power. And we are just a spectator. Once in 6 years, we get to be a member of the acting council. And then you also have to understand, man, what more can a country do? And when the Bretton Woods institution is just closed, and IMF defines what it has to do, the World Bank president is by rotation to a big country, and the Americans appoint the World Bank president, the IMF president is appointed by the Europe always. And the fair question that I'm trying to make is, when people look at India for moral choice, the so-called big powers have to appreciate to the changing reality, the Bretton Woods institutions has to change. And without having power, how can somebody take a moral choice?
That's actually what I thought you were going to say, that the clear foreign policy would be a seat at the Security Council. And Nandi, let me pass it over.
Sorry, point of order. Can we have questions now or on the
we will get to questions. Thank you for asking that. Please think of your questions. We have just a couple more questions that we worked out that we thought would cover a lot of ground, and then we will gather a set of 3 or 4 questions at a time. But thank you for asking.
In the interest of time, I didn't ask follow-up question on the growth part of it, because I think in And just as I will acknowledge that there has been a lot of investment in fundamental sort of infrastructure and so on. I think equally one can argue that in the period that preceded that, whether it was infrastructure in terms of things like Aadhaar, for instance, right, which has been the foundation, literally, as the word suggests, on which a lot of the reforms that have come subsequently in terms of, have been made possible, like the digital platforms, etc. But so keeping that aside, because this is maybe a topic for a longer conversation, I would like to move from the global stage to something more regional, right? And one of the things I would like to talk about here is you are a sort of politician from the South, right? And as we know, in the last 40 years, or actually longer since independence, if we look, for example, at numbers of growth numbers for the South versus the North, if I take Tamil Nadu, for instance, right, the per capita income is just a shade under $4,000 right now. If I look at UP as an example, in the North, it's like $1,300, which is a third of it. And then you also see that population growth rates are much lower in the South than in the North, which then also means that in terms of the tax burden, there is much more for per capita in terms of the South, and we don't get central transfers to the same extent, right? And we know that there's a delimitation exercise which is coming up in 2026. And what I'm curious about is, given this sort of divergence, both in terms of the per capita incomes and the growth and the population, and sort of the center-state relationship and transfers, how do you see this playing out in the years to come? And as somebody who's from the BJP in the South, how do you see, the state and yourself navigating this divergence, and what the political and other implications of it, economics as well, might be?
Ma'am, yes, it's a very important question. I'm glad that you asked it. And also, just spending 30 seconds on the first part that you mentioned. Yes, I am not sitting here using this as a political stage. I gratefully acknowledge that a lot of great economists, including Manmohan Singh, at different points of time, and they pushed it, 1991, and others also, Nandan Nilekes and everybody. But I always say it is about the vision that a person has got in taking it further. It always that counts. So we are very grateful that many reforms are a continuation of many, many years, and Modi ji has amplified it in a big way. And many things that he has pushed it now. So I'm not, as a party, taking credit that everything we have done. The country is a work in progress. And we all have that humility. 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 And demonetization is a person that is a topic for a separate date. I can argue that if demonetization might not have happened, India would have gone the current China way of real estate bubble now. China's 30% of GDP is real estate, and such a bubble, that is an argument for a different day, ma'am, but still we might agree to disagree on this. But coming to the very important question that you asked, the South and the North, I like to put certain things in perspective, ma'am. When India got independence, all the coal areas were mostly in the northern part, the Bihar and the Jharkhand part. Tamil Nadu wanted coal because the industries are coming this side. We have to put this in perspective before we talk about the north-south issue. In Tamil Nadu we felt, if I lift the coal from Jharkhand in train, bring all the way up to Tamil Nadu, it will be costly for me. Then, at that point of time, the central government decided to put something called a freight equalization charge. They said you lift the coal from Jharkhand and Bihar, you take it to Tamil Nadu. For you, the freight charge will be as equal to a coal that is lifted in Jharkhand and given in Jharkhand. Okay. So we have to appreciate this before we make any comment to say, for South to grow, North has contributed. That is a very important thing. We all have to acknowledge the different points of view. And a parochial politician can always say, I always believe in the value of every single human being, whatever religion, whatever race, whatever caste you believe, everybody has got the same potential. It is not that I say that sitting here that South we are so special and something there is magic in my DNA that we grow very fast. The contribution happened from North because they wanted industries to come here. Second, of course, North had a different set of problems. South had a different set of problems, and both the problems were very unique to each part. And if you look at the stabler governments in South had more stabler governments than governments in North. Again, research proves that more turnaround happened in political parties in North. You don't have, here in South you have one government, for example, the Dravidian political party system. At least you have stability, though I keep criticizing them in different contexts in Tamil Nadu. At least you have stability. 5 years one government, 5 years next government. And for an investor, that stability was important. Not that was not the case. Now, you are looking at the political stability across our country. And Maharashtra is India's number one state, Tamil Nadu being number two, UP have just touched number two. There is an argument in Tamil Nadu whether UP has actually touched two. UP is going very fast. In another 10 years, the problem is the workers from Tamil Nadu, who are predominantly from the northern part, at last count, close to about 55 lakh, 5.5 million workers inside Tamil Nadu, they come from the northern parts of India. Once they go back, what will happen to our economy? So this is an important question before we get into the other things. Because once you get manufacturing in UP, manufacturing in Bihar and different northern parts, the workers who are in Tamil Nadu, Kerala, Karnataka, they start going back to their state because it is very closer to them. So what will happen to our manufacturing base? It's a question. When people say South grew, yes, South grew. South grew because the capital was given by us, but the labor was given by North. So many of us keep this argument there that we should not be parochial. In terms of taxation sharing, when somebody is talking, for every 1 rupee I give to center gives Tamil Nadu this much, but probably UP gets more, or probably, because it's a very identified, very clear finance commission rules. It's a formula that is agreed by everybody. And any central government wants every part of India to grow. And just like they supported us at different points of time in labor, or I mentioned about the freight equalization charge, the politicians now, they might say it for election's sake that I will not pay taxation, Tamil Nadu should be separate, why should I give you taxation? For every 1 rupee I give, you give back 1 rupee. That is an argument we can have for politics, but practically, economically, when you speak, you have one part of the country which is not growing, it is going to be a problem for every single part. Answering the second part, yes ma'am, I think it's a very right argument you made. From 1971, we have freezed the number of MPs. We freezed it by an amendment to the constitution because of the population influx. Now, probably that amendment is getting expired in 2026, which means after this many years, the parliament will be forced to increase the number of MPs. It is not that BJP is trying to do. It is not that, I want to put this in context. In 1971, it was freezed by parliament to state, because every time the MP constituency get increased by after 10 years based on census. We said the Assam influx happened. We said a lot of things are happening. The Bangladesh fight that is happening at that point of time. Now it's a choice that we are willing to face in 2026 in our government, that the MPs have to go out. Now we have to understand in India also there are constituencies for 14 lakh there is an MP. In Coimbatore where I contested 22 lakh there is an MP. So within the constituencies you have a variation of 8 lakh. Some constituencies have 22, some have 14. But you know the basics of, we are sitting in the school of government. The basics of democracy is every person should have equal vote. That's the basics of democracy. We can't get to the American legal compromise, what happened in 1776. But when you go for the basics of every person having the same vote, then it's a different argument. Then you might say Tamil Nadu had a better population control. So you bring every person having same vote, then Tamil Nadu will lose. It's a fair argument. I'm not saying it is not at all a fair argument.
Yeah.
Now you bring geography, economics, per capita income into a voting problem. This is the first time a country will be willing to do it. I'm not very sure, it's a complex one, but I'm very sure that the Prime Minister and the party, they will be making a decision that doesn't do any injustice to Tamil Nadu, nor injustice to Bihar, nor injustice to you.
Look, I want to make sure we get to some questions, but I have one more question that I really quickly want to ask, and then I'll ask you to briefly answer it, and then we can open up to questions. And then there are microphones in the back, but also if you feel you can just speak loudly. So, and that is the question that's on the topic that you just brought up, which is the question of democracy.
Yeah, very important question.
It's an important question. It's an elephant in the room for many, I think, examinations of politics in India today. And as a scholar of democracy myself, I'm the first to admit that there is an inordinate amount of hypocrisy around the question of democracy, right? So why do we focus on democracy in Ukraine and not on democracy in Saudi Arabia? Fair question. But the question I have is nonetheless about the state of democracy in India. We have 3 different organizations widely regarded by scholars as the most independent, one in the US, one in Sweden, and one based in the UK with The Economist. They have all said that in the last 6 years, India has moved from kind of a vibrant democracy to this kind of hybrid regime territory. Now, why do we care about democracy? Is it just a buzzword, right? Or is there something more about it? Look, the research really shows that democracy actually, in the long term, really matters for growth. And the reason it matters for growth is things that we have seen play out in China recently, right? So when you don't know what your citizens are thinking, when you can't hear them criticize the government, and that's a source of information. So when citizens can say to your government, this is what I think you are doing wrong. And it's not just about the moments of elections, which are fair and free in India, but it's about the ability of citizens to organize and to dissent, and for media to be free. So it's not just that these organizations have downgraded India into this hybrid territory. It's not just about the name democracy, because after all, perhaps the least democratic country in the world, the Democratic Republic of North Korea, has democracy in its name. So it's not just a name, it's a set of institutions, and it's the ability to criticize your government. Do you think that exists in India today?
I'm very glad that you asked me this question, that you in Oxford now. And I'm very, very happy to answer this. I just opened today, I need a little bit time to answer. It's very important, I have to put a certain context here. And yes, people measure democracy, three indices. The World Freedom Index measures, the Economist Democratic Index measures, and the varieties of democracy measure. One is from Stockholm, one is from the Economist magazine, one is from US. Now, my critique of the way they measure always is, if you look at the World Freedom of Index, the World Freedom House, the way they measure, they say, after 2019, India's democracy has taken a turn for the worse. That is the word they give. And very specifically, they attribute two things: removal of Article 370 in Kashmir and the NRC in Assam. The two things they clearly attribute. Now, for the sake of audience who are sitting here, they have to understand 1970, when the Freedom House Index started. It was done by one professor, assisted by his wife for 20 years. As a single person, I just want the professor to just allow me for 2-3 minutes. I'll be very happy to hear your argument. 20 years, one professor, 1990, the same professor who started this index, he said, I measure democracy in a country by my hunch and my belief. Now, all we are asking is, yes, everybody has got a right to measure democracy in a country. We want people to come and measure democracy, and experts like you to say. But the question is it actually measured? If you look at the Economist Democratic Index unit, it takes its value from the World Freedom of Values Index. From 2012, no survey has happened in India. So Economist magazine is forced to give 60 questions to experts who grade India's democracy, and Economist publishes that as India's democratic index. I'm only asking the audience and you whether it's a fair way of measuring a democracy.
Maybe it's not.
I'm just answering, I'm answering. When you talk about freedom and other democratic index also, what we're trying to say, in 2019 in BJP's manifesto, very clearly we said, when we win, from 1952 we are saying in our party's manifesto, Article 370 and 35A, we are taking it back. It's very, very funny, a democratic index telling me, because of removal of 370, we are giving you a lesser score in democracy. Only after, ma'am, I'm putting your question. In England, will you accept a girl born in Scotland, if she gets married outside Scotland, she will lose her right to property? Will you accept it? In India, a girl born in Kashmir, born in Kashmir, if she gets married outside Kashmir, she loses the right to property. Article 370, by removing, we have given her back the property. So democratic index should give us more score for removing this property.
I think, be that as it may, your answer is about, to my question about whether democracy has declined as measured by ability to criticize government. And you went.
The second part, very important.
Now let me finish, right? So you went to 370. It's not just about 370. Reporters Without Borders Press Freedom Index saw India drop 15 scores, right? So it's not just about Article 370. And I actually think, I'm not talking about policies now. And again, hypocrisy is there, but there's a clear correlation between, the ability of citizens to criticize their government and the information that government hears and effective governance, right? This is well shown. And so
it's a very important question.
So my question to you, which is the question I asked also at the start, is do you think that the space to dissent in India, forget Article 370, forget the CAA, forget the things that, right? I'm talking about the space to criticize government. Is that the same today in India as it was a decade ago?
We have to appreciate and understand. In India, anybody is free to, if you look at all the prime ministers in the world, presidents in the world, and who gets criticized most, And I can say it'll be Prime Minister number one. I'm not again talking parochial. People can call names, people can call everything, people can abuse his mother. Even when the mother is dead, people can abuse. That is the level to which democracy is there. Second, we have to appreciate, when you say that nobody protested, the farm law was taken back because we listened to the people's protest. We have to appreciate. And we are a country where our minority brothers and sisters can sit in Delhi Artery Road, block the traffic for 60, 70 days. Still they are allowed to protest because of the Citizenship Amendment Act. If they have a problem, they can always speak. And India, you just have to understand, it's a very complex country now. And the law and order is a state subject. What happens in Tamil Nadu? Tamil Nadu, for example, I as a politician have multiple cases against me, again for freedom of speech by the opposite government. I've gone to the Supreme Court and currently stated. Now we have to appreciate law and order, it is a part of the different state governments. Police is part of that. And attributing everything, what happens in Bengal, oh, let me put it in Modi's account one. What happens here, let me put it in the Prime Minister's account. All I'm saying is, can India be 100% perfect democracy? I don't think any country in the world is 100%. Everybody is improving. All of us are reaching there. All of us are reaching there. But the trajectory when people say from 2014 it took a turn for the worse, and they start attributing 2019 when they start giving all this data, that is where I have a problem. When free and fair elections happen, people vote. The Prime Minister is getting voted back to power for the third straight time. That too happening in a very noisy democracy in our country. That too we got 240 with all humility we accepted. 20 parties together they got 240. It is unheard of in global politics. 20 parties together they got 240. One party got 240. But still they say BJP is loser. I don't know what mathematics people bring to the table.
Well, the mathematics are that 95% of charges brought up on UAPA are against opposition politicians. So that would be, for example, one fact.
UAPA, Unlawful Activity Prevention Act, is a very clear act to prevent terrorism. That is mainly to prevent terrorism. And India previously had a very draconian Quota Act which is not there. Visa Act was not there. UAPA Act is there. So I'll be very happy to speak further on this, but 100% we can, anybody who's in India for a longer time, again I respect your point of view, you are doing very important work, your professors, we need critical inputs from outside, people who look at India with a fresh set of lens, absolutely no question. But my argument to both of you and to the audience who are listening here is, it's not a fair way to sit outside and say that it has deteriorated in our country, and right now equating what is happening in India to 1976 emergency. Now, people speak multiple languages. It's so noisy. And anybody can travel outside, and people can come to Oxford and criticize India in the opposite party. Sachin Pilot is a very dear friend. He's a fantastic politician, no doubt. We respect everybody's view. But to say that it has taken a worse after Modiji has come, I don't think it's a very fair assessment.
Let's take some questions. I hope that we have a good number of questions. I expect that we would. So let me take, I'm going to take them in groups of 3 or 4. So let's start with this gentleman right here. I think you can just speak loudly or
if we can get you with the microphone.
Is that all right? We take a couple of questions together.
Time is your decision.
Can you keep it brief, please?
Hi sir, my name is Vishnu. I'm a big fan of your charismatic speech. My question is, what is your vision for Tamil Nadu when you become the Chief Minister?
Okay, so vision for Tamil Nadu as Chief Minister. Yes, back here. Just go ahead and stand up and. I think it's going to delay us, so just.
Annamalai,
Yeah.
I'm glad to see you here. My question is not just for Annamalai, for both of you as well. Why do you think Western left-wing governments have a hatred for India and Hindus? And I'll qualify that with a concrete proof right here what happened, right? So the first concrete proof is the last couple of weeks there's been an increased attack on churches and temples in Bangladesh. The only person who spoke about it is the President-elect Trump. And I just came back from a meeting with the shadow cabinet, and all the conservatives are happy to talk about it, and the Labour's backdoor accept that there's a problem. They don't want to say anything because they lose with their vote bank. And sorry, one last point about Anandi's condescension about made in India, and the fact that are you a rule breaker or a rule maker? I'll end that with this point. Was Tony Blair and George Bush rule breakers?
Macron rule breakers when Tony Blair and George Bush went into Iraq against international sanctions. Same goes for Macron.
Okay, thank
So,
you.
this condescension is what we hate.
Okay, thank you.
Can I speak from here?
No, we're gonna go this way throughout the room. Hamsi, go ahead. Just stand up and speak. I think we're fine.
Hi, Anna. I have a question about, and I'm going to take you down south to Tamil Nadu. In the last election, BJP, which has been an alliance with DMK and AIDMK for the longest time, decided to contest 23 seats by itself. And I do want to ask a question: what is the demographic shift in the local politics that is happening with respect to both caste and gender in Tamil Nadu that is giving BJP the confidence to build a new voter base?
Great,
So
thank
so
you,
much.
thank you. Let me take one more, this one right here.
Hi, my name is Venkataraman. I'm from Chennai. I would like to know from Mr. Annamalai the choice of joining BJP, why he has chosen the BJP as a party to serve.
Okay, great, thank you. We'll take those. Okay, so vision when you become prime minister, thinking about whether Western hatred for India, demographic shift in Tamil Nadu, and what did I say? Freudian slip. Finally,
Let's put them on
why
the
join the
spot.
BJP? So you can answer what you like.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you for the questions. Tamil Nadu, I think it's a great state. It's a very nationalistic state. We believe the potential of Tamil Nadu can be realized more because to be a $1 trillion economy, we are about $430 million now. A lot of things have to happen, and innovation is not happening, startups is not happening, it is all happening outside. And more importantly, the manufacturing is moving out, and the rural areas, people are moving towards urban, agriculture is failing, water is the problem, primary education is a problem. So the basic problems. And there's nothing like one day you can fix everything. It's a long process. In democracy is always bargaining. You fight with people, you give some, you take some. So you want to fix all get the fundamentals right. How 1950, 60 and 70, the fundamentals of Tamil Nadu were laid by Kamarajar and some great people. So you want to lay the fundamental back to become a $1 trillion economy. So we hope we get that chance, our party gets that chance whenever we get it, we want to do that. Second, the question from him, with due respect to both the professors, I don't want to get into that, but having said it, it's a very complex multipolar world now, one of unipolar and two countries now. So social media has only amplified it, and many a time we get what is happening in some corner of a world immediately to our cell phone. I hope and pray that countries everywhere, governments everywhere will take a very conscious call. The way they look at neighbors, the way they look at their old friends, that's the way they look at distant countries also. What is happening in Bangladesh is a cause of concern. Everybody should look at it. And we all know Bangladesh is a big, enjoys so much trade with, especially with UK and this thing, and what happens in Bangladesh is a cause of concern. I hope and pray the UK government is taking note of it, and they will gently, if they have to get into it, make sure that the minorities of the country are protected well. And the third question is very, very important question, very fascinating question also. And we always believe in politics, you exist to form a government, and that we should be very clear, and you cannot keep riding on somebody's coattail for a long time. In Tamil Nadu, we are bold enough to make that decision now. It's a long process, it doesn't happen overnight. And this time we have achieved a very important distinction of crossing a double-digit vote share, 12% now. It's a very competitive democratic landscape. More than 8 parties in Tamil Nadu have minimum 3% vote share at least. Even if you look at the 8th party in Tamil Nadu, they have 3% vote share. That complex demography. So we hope, being at it, giving the people the confidence that we are separate from these parties, more people will come towards us. And with respect to the demographic shift, yes, youth is always a harbinger of hope. In Tamil Nadu, we are seeing the shift of youth first, and women are shifting in a big way now. We are seeing that also. The so-called intellectual class, which doesn't vote much, this election, it was a hope for us. The so-called intellectual class, they came out, they voted in a big way across Tamil Nadu. So we want to tap into all the 3 segments in the coming elections also. Again, I say, it's not going to happen tomorrow, it is not going to happen 2025, it's a long process, but we are well prepared to stay in the game for the next 10 years, to build a huge base for ourselves. And people should have the confidence that standing alone, next election, you will not go back for an alliance. That's very important in politics. You do it and all the hard work goes to a waste. And Venkataraman sir, choice of joining BJP, for me it was a very simple choice, sir. One, I'm a very hardcore nationalist, meaning a nationalist in Western part is understood very wrongly. But again, to clarify it, nationalist means a country who wants a person who wants a strong country, not very parochial to say my state comes first, not too parochial to say my region comes first, and to say my country comes first. Natural choice. Second, I'm always a big admirer of Modi, and I'm very open about it. Sometimes the leader attracts you more than the ideology. So I felt at this point of time, all of us should stand with Modi ji and contribute to his vision. So for me, it was a very easy choice.
I love the applause. I love the enthusiasm. Can we hold the applause until the end, and then you can vigorously applaud, right? So can we go back here? Yes. Stand up and just speak loudly.
Yeah, so the question is, what is the view currently in India about the election of Trump? And also the fact that many Republicans and many, I think, on the right in Western democracies are seeing interventions in foreign politics as a bad thing, and they want to withdraw from that. So I guess there's no one way of seeing America's interest in foreign policy as well. So how is India also viewing Trump's approach to foreign policy?
Great. So Trump's approach to foreign policy. Can I come to you here? Yeah.
Hello, sir. This is Nandini. What advice would you give to women like me who aspire to be in politics, homemaker, mother? What points for me to convince family?
Fantastic. There's so many hands here, it's a little bit hard to choose. Can I come here to the gentleman in the blue shirt?
Jai Shri Ram, Annamalai garu. So, Professor Maya has been asking about the internal politics, and Professor Anand, the other way around.
That's fine.
They have been asking about the foreign politics and everything. I would like to connect both of them and ask you, how does the geopolitical scenarios that are happening right now change the politics in India, especially now with the election of like Mr. Trump getting elected in America? How does it change the politics within India?
Yeah, okay. Let me come over here, the NASA shirt.
My mom warned me about that, actually. Right, so I'm a strong proponent of the secular state in India, but I don't think India is actually a truly secular state, and I'll tell you my reasons why. 80% of the population of the country is Hindu, yet their religious institutions are under state control. Now, just to give you an example, in my home state of Tamil Nadu, thousands and thousands of temples are under state control. And this treatment is not meted out to the religious institutions of any other religious group, whether it's Muslims or Christians or Jews. So what can you do, Maya, to sort of bring this systemic discrimination to light? How do you think you can advocate to bring this human rights views to the fore? And to Mr. Annamalai sir, what do you think you can do to help in the free temple movement in Tamil Nadu as well?
All right, so you've got essentially the two questions on geopolitical scenarios and Trump, so converge that into one, women in politics and the free temple movement. This is not my space to give my opinion, we're here.
Coming to the election of Trump, the American people have spoken. They have spoken with a loud voice, and after 20 years, the Republican president is getting a popular vote also. And they have spoken, and it is important that everybody with the humility to understand why they have spoken in that way. And a lot of experts, they say it is the revolt of working class people against the elite, and the language what they use, the hollow out of manufacturing, and they want a lot of immigration, economy, and other issues in their mind. So it will be unfair for me sitting outside to comment on the American voters' choice, why they made and how they made. So we have to accept that the new president has come, and 4 years we have seen what kind of president he is. Now next 4 years he has got. And we cannot just wish away America in the international politics. And whatever we say, it's a very big country, and it's a global superpower, and the biggest navy in the world, dominating force, technology capital of the world. And when we talk about artificial intelligence, the top 50 companies, 32 is alone in San Francisco alone. We just have to appreciate the fact people cannot just ignore America and do global geopolitics. So I hope and pray that coming era, Trump mentioned a word that peace through strength, and I like that approach. I like that word. And even the current, the outgoing president, Joe Biden, had a very tough thing. When I looked at Bob Woodward's War Book, when I read it, and very complex space they are trying to navigate. You have to navigate a complex space, and it will be very unfair of me to sit here with my little experience to judge on what they did. But I pray when he talks about strength, peace through strength, and which the Ukrainian president also welcomed now. So probably the war will start coming to an end. Israel has to listen to somebody, and the Hamas has to go back to where they belong, and they don't have anything to do terror on the innocent people. And the so-called state-supported forces have to go back, and they can't come outside. So a lot of things to do it. I'm sure they will do it. The Security Council will become a place where everybody's voices will be heard. And if it happens, then fantastic. If it doesn't happen, then I don't think it's a very good sign that a lot of problems are either created new or it's just a continuation of old problem. Now, the way India looks at Trump's election, our Prime Minister has greeted very warmly the new incoming person. Our Prime Minister also enjoyed fantastic relationship with the outgoing President Joe Biden. And India, they always had two cause for celebration. One, J.D. Vance, better half, wife is from Andhra. So again, India rejoices. Kamala Harris, she has got again a link to Tamil Nadu. So the village near Tanjavur is celebrating. So we are very happy. We are very happy that there is somebody connected to an Indian origin who was sitting as a vice president now and again a vice president now. So India maintains a very delicate balance between every single leadership that comes in because, and they haven't done anything bad towards India, be it Democratic and Republic. They are all very conscious of the fact a lot of immigrants they live in US and a lot of Indian-based background citizens in America. So and they occupy very deep positions there. So everybody is very conscious of the fact that India is a rising part. So they have treated us very nicely, and India is also going to do the same. And this is, I'm talking as an observer, as a citizen of this my country. Now coming to the question about women entering politics, ma'am, right now I can consciously acknowledge it is very tough for a woman in politics to break the glass ceiling. It's very, very tough. US 200 years are still counting, and probably they have to wait for another 4 more years to see a woman breaking the glass ceiling. In India, it's very tough, I can acknowledge it. But I'm also very happy, the recent 106th Amendment of the Constitution, which says 33% of MPs will be reserved for women, 33% of all legislative assemblies will be reserved for women. So in the House of Commons, when we go to the Parliament in Britain, we see a lot of women voices. We see fantastic articulation happening here. I look forward to a day, possibly it should happen in 2029 Lok Sabha. Before that, everything should fall in place. 33% MPs, 33 plus, minimum 33 plus, women should start going in. That's the first thing. Second, you should some way get into politics. And there are many ways to get into politics, not necessarily be in the field. And now politics is giving you the option, you can just be a researcher, you can just give an input, you can be in social media, and you can contribute in different wings of the party, and not necessarily gone are the days when you got to be in the field. And now you can still sit in UP and do politics in Tamil Nadu because technology makes it possible. I would only tell you, take small steps, take it for 6 months, see whether you're liking politics, you're able to contribute, you're feeling happy, you're feeling meaningful. Once you feel confident, jump into it. And of course, as I said, you have to convince your parents, your family, and everybody. It's a long process. But the country is ready, opening the doors. And we opened, because 50% of our panchayat is reserved for women. And gone are the days of husband controlling the wife because she is the panchayat president. Now we are seeing very clearly our mothers and sisters, they are sitting in positions of influence and dictating. So the ground is actually very good now. You just have to take that call, just jump off the cliff with a bit of boldness. Things will fall in your lap is my thing. And secular state, I can very proudly say, sir, sitting in a foreign land, that India is a secular state. Where we are very clear right from the day of independence. Even you will acknowledge this, that the minorities should be treated fairly, and everybody is clear about it. And being a majority of 87%, India is a very unique country because when all our neighbors chose to go the religious way, theocratic way, we decided that we will go the secular way. We are still maintaining it. But it is the unfortunate part that whether the temples and the places of worship is treated equally, that is not so the case, especially in Tamil Nadu. I look forward to a day, because it is a party's question, I'm very happy to say this in the forum also. The day BJP gets elected to power in Tamil Nadu, the day one we will release temples from state control. Churches should not be controlled by state, mosques should not be controlled by state, likewise temples should not be controlled by state. We are very clear about it, because true secularism means you treat everybody fairly. That is our party's position, and we are moving towards it. A certain amount of momentum is being built among the public.
So I know there are a lot of questions, but we are out of time, and I On the ride down, I had, in the elevator, I had one last question that I'm gonna take the prerogative to ask Mr. Annamalai, which you noted already, but for your benefit, we've had the chance to interact before. He is here as part of the Gorocal Chevening program, with which we've again, I interacted before, and I asked him in the elevator down here how he was enjoying that time, and he said, "I'm a changed person." I said, "Really? You know, how is it changed?" I said, wait, let's hold that. Tell everyone, how has the time, so, you know, we are part of an institution, university in general, that prides itself on, you know, really spirited and open dialogue and debate, and in particular at the Blavatsky School of Government, we believe that if you change government by just a little bit, you really are able to change the lives of many people. In India, of course, 1.4 billion people. So, so just give us a little flavor of how.
I'm glad that Professor, you asked me this question. I still remember when Professor Maya Tudor was in our class, and she made her point of view, and it is a well-known fact that as a researcher they have a point of view. And it is also a fact that everybody will have a point of view because we look politics very closer. I'm still in the game inside. I remember the long conversation both of us had over emails. I wrote an email to Professor and she was kind enough to reply to me. Then I wrote an email. I believe that is the greatness of Oxford. And when you come here, you engage with anybody, even a great political scientist and economic scholar, and everybody sits in the same forum. That is a great thing for me. And fortunately, unfortunately, Professor, at one point of time, India was a great country in terms of education and learning, the Nalandas and the Taxilas, if you look at it, and fantastic places of learning. But somehow, colonial conquest, at different points of time, we lost many things. So we are trying to get back into that space where our academic centers can be world class. And then the latest world ranking, 46 Indian colleges have gone into the US world ranking. It was 11 previously, now we are 46. We want to get there. But when you look at this kind of eminent institutions like Oxford, we just pride that India should also have something like that soon, where the children come here, they take all kinds of questions. You go somewhere, somebody is for Palestine, somebody is against Palestine, somebody is for Gaza, somebody is against. But when you talk to those kids, everybody has got a point of view, and it is not necessary that you should just shut somebody down just because he's got a differing opinion. That is the big thing in Oxford. The second, for me, everywhere is the quality of resources Oxford has got, the libraries, the accessibility it gives you. And even here, and you are very kind enough, and a respectable member of the audience had a very differing point of view with you, and somebody had a differing point of view with you. And it is a greatness that we sit in the same forum, and then we engage, and we all have different points of view, but we might try and find a common way inside. This I see in Oxford day after day, class after class. But when I heard about Oxford outside, I had a different point of view. But when I'm inside, I'm having a different point of view. Third, but most importantly, I said I'm going back a changed man because I remember when economists wanted to do an interview of me, Economist magazine about 8 months back, I said I will not give an interview. He said, why? He said, look, you are biased, I'm not going to talk to you. He said, look, that is not the way to argue. I said, okay, if that is the case, we will do one thing. I'm opening my life to you for 4 days. You can tag along with me. Everything you see. After that, you ask a question, I will reply. The reporter, a British reporter based in India, was kind enough to come with me, and 4 days he traveled with me. Then we both had a very engaging conversation. I don't want a positive or a negative story about India, madam. We are not bothered. We are only bothered about a story with perspective. Yeah. So that made me wonder that maybe India is not represented very well in global forums, in Financial Times or New York Times or many places. Some of our achievements have to come in these papers, the papers that most people read. It is not that I can simply say I don't care what people in Zurich think, what people in London think, what people in Washington think, but actually you influence the money that comes into my country, the FDI that comes into my country is influenced. Go out, attack all the 3 indices. But all the 3 indices is a basis for World Bank to determine a country's governance mechanism based on which funds flow. And it is very important that one side I attack everything with data, on the other side we have also the humility to accept, to see how can I do better, to see how can I bring a better argument to the table so that everybody gets our point of view that is represented well. So I'm going back with this mindset that not necessarily to close our ears and shut down our eyes to criticism, but come back, have an open forum, go back. If there is something that we have to change, we are happy enough to change, no problem.
Well, on that wonderful note,